Hello, I'm the Habu, and I wanted to do some post-commentary on my recent classic Moonlord world record. I wanted to add some post-commentary to this to give some added context to the strats I used throughout the run, as well as the things that I could have improved on or done instead. If you find my voice annoying and rather just watch the raw VOD with no commentary, the link is in the description below. Before we get started, I would like to explain what this category is. This is a classic Moonlord speedrun, where the sole objective is to kill Moonlord as fast as possible. I will be using the no major abuses rule set, which is mainly just no duping and no hoiking. If you want to see the full rule set though, it will be in the description. This run is done on a random seed with a fresh character and a fresh world, and I will be using the small world size for faster navigation, as well as I will be selecting Crimson as my evil biome. I'm going to be doing this in one take, so if I stutter over my words, I'm sorry. That talking. But anyways, at the start, I'm always going to be looking for tall trees. Tall trees means more wood. Tall trees means I build houses faster. Tall trees is just best trees. We're going to be building these houses for NPCs, specifically demolitionists. We need dynamite and nades to be able to get through early game. I'm also going to be building houses in weird ways. These are known as speedrunners' houses, and this first variant is what we call a nurse house. Essentially, I don't need walls in this type of house because it bypasses the wall requirement by not having a wall that is more than a 4-block gap between another wall. It's really confusing. I don't understand it. I just know it works. And the reason the top part is solid and the bottom part isn't, we want the bottom part to not be solid so we can place a bed and get out easily, where the top part we want to hold our nurse in place for later. Other than that, it's just standard houses. You also can just do the walling at the top for the nurse house with platforms. It does the exact same thing. We just mainly want to trap the nurse, so that's why we use solid blocks. You're going to notice the house on the far right is also going, or I'm sorry, the far left is also going to be a wall-less house. The only issue with doing wall-less houses is NPCs do require walls to move in, so I can't make every single house a wall-less house, and that's why I do 4 walled houses. The more walls you have, the more likely they are to spawn in quicker. Other than that, I suit the basic requirements: table, chair, big enough space, and a torch. I choose to go right first. I almost always try to go right first. It's just what I do. Some runners go left, some runners go right. I choose right. I'm going to be picking up day blooms, any plants I see, as well as placing sunflowers because they give a bonus move speed. In living trees, I always go down and look for this room. I pick it up, get the loot. Ideally, I get 50 silver for the merchant to move in, and then I pick up the loom. The loom sells for like a gold. We need a lot of money early. I need a minimum of 20 gold to be able to build the elevator out of dynamite. And this chest down here that I get is actually quite important because it contains iron. If I get 6 iron at a start of the run, I can do something called minecart slinging, which is essentially a early game grappling hook for the poor. Just checking the tree to see if there was anything else, and then I'm off. You'll see in a second what this minecart sling is capable of once I dig through all this. Essentially what I'm doing is placing it on the minecart, clicking the mount button, and then immediately canceling the mount by jumping. I'm not perfect at it, but generally you get a bunch of move speed. Sometimes the mount just doesn't go off because you're too far, but you can get a lot of mobility like this, which is just much faster than just standard walking, if you couldn't tell. Picking up a water leaf for obsidian skin potion to make getting hellstone easier. And you're going to notice that I'm spam pinging the bottom of the map there with the question mark. That is looking for a pyramid. If there is a pyramid below there, it will say this housing is too big, which indicates, hey, there's a pyramid. Go get it. There's a lot of gold and a very powerful item known as the sandstorm in the bottle if I get lucky enough. But I'm just traveling to the jungle. The jungle is always my highest priority in these runs. It generally has the best loot and the most life crystals for the start of the run, which is very beneficial because the more HP I have, the more reckless I can be. Let me tell you, I love to be reckless. You will notice that I go into this cave. Oh, wait, do I actually go into this cave? I do actually go into this cave. So normally I don't take these hill caves. The reason for that is because they're designed to end. In the jungle, there's a main entrance, which you see on your left. And this entrance is designed to go all the way down to hell. But since it was combined in with the hill cave, I just decided to go down the hill cave to get to the main entrance a little bit easier. But you're just going to see me navigate through the jungle, dodging traps, trying to pick up as many chests as I can. The objective is to get at least 20 gold, and I need to have demolitionists move in before the end of the night. The earlier, the better. But yeah, standard jungle looting. See this in almost every run. The two most valuable things that I can actually get out of these Ivy chests are flower boots, because for whatever reason they sell for 8 gold, and then the one super useful item, which is, I believe Anklet of the Wind is what it's called. Just gives a 10% move speed buff. It's not Hermes, but when you don't always get Hermes in runs like these, it's just the next best thing, realistically. Demolitionist just moved in around the 7-minute mark. A little slow, but I know I am going to be cutting it close if I recall now for the money, so I continue digging down to see if I can find something interesting. Luckily, I dig right into the main cave that just got covered up by that tree. Feral claws, some glow sticks, and this is where the run's luck actually begins, with a coin portal. I desperately needed that. My money was running low. I just pick all the shenanigans up to sell, use my life crystals now that the demolitionist has moved in. NPCs have a move-in order, and the nurse is much higher than the demolitionist. So if I use the life crystals too early, then the nurse is going to move in before the demo, slowing down the demo move-in time, which then therefore makes early game a little bit slower. So you got to play the early game with 120 HP, and then after that you can use your life crystals. At this point I know I have way more than enough money, and I recall. After this I'm just going to be selling a bunch of stuff, getting as much money as I can. Real slow with the menu, but when you're in a real-time speedrun, you don't really want to make the mistake and sell something that you need later down the line. Piggy banks for extra storage, anvils to be able to craft stuff. And then finally, demolitionist. I always buy 2 stacks of nades. It lasts me well past hard mode. And then as much dynamite as I can. Now, if you're a smart aleck, you'll say, oh, bombs are more efficient. They provide more explosion per cost of gold. The issue with bombs is that they bounce really high, and they have a short fuse time. So that means it is very difficult to make a elevator very quickly out of it. So that's why I choose to use dynamite unless I specifically have a feather fall, which then makes using bombs much easier in the elevator. I'm going to be planting these blinkroot seeds. Blinkroot is probably one of the most important plants in the game. Not only does it allow me to make extra feather falls, which is going to be the biggest part of mobility in this run, it allows me to create builder's potions and spelunker potions if necessary. So I make a little farm, and that will actually come into play much later into the run because I do not get very lucky. And that, I just start building the elevator. At this point, we're just hoping to find a cloud in a bottle, Hermes, and more specifically, a gems for a grappling hook. I also need a bomb to hell so I can kill Wall of Flesh, because relying on random teleport potions isn't really consistent. The mushroom biome here, love to see that. It generally has a bunch of chests and life crystals. House. And we get a cloud. Check it out a little bit more. See a few chests and a few life crystals. Pretty happy about this. Sometimes you get robbed, but I got pretty lucky this time. Be faster to just recall and go around than it is to recall, drop back down than it is to go around. Plus, I want a few more dynamite to make sure that I'm able to get to hell with the amount that I have, because a stack generally isn't enough. Also, dropping back down is much easier now that I have a feather fall. Oh, I haven't built the safest elevator so far, apparently. Since I have a little bit of free time for those observant out there. Observant is the word that I was looking for. You're going to notice that I have splits at the bottom that tells you how long it generally takes me to do each thing or what my PB is. Technically, it's not my PB. These are the world record splits. I've added 2 splits since then that I actually have not have times for. And it will come to bite me later because I actually forget to split. So the splits kind of at the bottom are a little useless, but you can make note of when I actually kill the bosses when it happens. Even though I have a grappling hook, I'm still picking up more gems just for a little bit of cash. I will add that I am playing on current patch. Most runners don't play on current patch. They play on a downgraded patch before the stained glass nerfs. Essentially, stained glass used to sell for an unreasonable amount of money, and it was nerfed. The reason that I play on this patch is because in the patch that they nerfed stained glass, they also buffed Wall of Flesh, where Wall of Flesh on Classic now also drops an emblem and a weapon. The bigger part is the emblem. We now have a 1 in 4 for Ranger emblem, which is the best item drop that we can get from Wall of Flesh, instead of a 1 in 8, which speeds up the run significantly. 15% range damage when we use range damage against basically 5, 6 bosses. Yeah, it's going to speed up the run a lot, so I'm betting on the 1 in 4. It gives me slightly higher highs than people running on older patches, but at the same time, I do lose a little bit of consistency. At this point, I'm going to be looking for the Crim. Generally, worlds are structured in a very specific way in small worlds. Once you do enough runs, you understand that. They're not all the same. Sometimes there's variables. But the jungle and the dungeon are always going to be on opposite sides. The ice biome is almost always on the dungeon side. And the desert biome is almost always on the jungle side. There are rare exceptions where the desert is also on the dungeon side, but those are very few worlds that are like that. The other thing that is also very common in small worlds is for Crimson to also be on dungeon side, which is a very big plus for us because Crimson has a little bit of an issue where it's very hard to get vertebrae in hard mode because basically all the monsters that drop vertebrae don't spawn as often in hard mode. So I want to try to get as much vertebrae as I can this first night, as well as I'm going to be bombing the top of these Crimson biomes for Crimstone. I'll be using this to make my souls farm later once we get into hard mode. Which I'll explain more when we get there. But I'm just passing by, killing enemies with grenades, trying to get as much vertebrae as I can. I do leave with quite little, if I remember correctly. I think I only left with like 2 or 3, where generally I try to go for about 4 to 5. Now this ended up being one of the very annoying parts of my run is the sandstorm. Sandstorms aren't supposed to spawn early, but I got extremely unlucky and I got an early sandstorm, and I believe it lasted the entire run. So later on during Cultist, this becomes a really big pain, along with when I start doing pillars, which is a little upsetting. All right. This is somewhat new tech, but it was done in the previous world record. This is Dynamite Skeletron. Skeletron is an absolute joke on Classic, to the point that you can just tank him and use Dynamite the entire time. I use about 4 Dynamite to kill the first hand. I failed because I'm bad. And then I go up to the top, throw down 5 Dynamite, and then go to the bottom, wait for it to go off. And then I wait for the hand to charge up. I roll out a bunch of Dynamite on the floor, and then I break a block. Place that block. These dungeon bricks are absolutely blast resistant, and then I kind of just rinse it. Cycle. And he's dead in basically 1 cycle here. You're also going to notice that I picked up some extra dungeon brick. Now this is going to be used here in a bit. Dungeon brick has a very special property in this game, where if an NPC is standing on dungeon brick, they will immediately teleport to their house that they are moved into, even if it is daytime. This is a mechanic that was specifically for the mechanic, which does spawn in the dungeon once you kill Skeletron. But you can actually destroy dungeon brick on the surface because Relogic didn't really want you to soft lock. Relogic didn't really want you to soft lock, so you're allowed to mine the top dungeon brick at the surface of the world. So we're going to be using that mechanic on Guide, so I don't actually have to be in Hell to make the Guide House until I want to be in Hell to make the Guide House. Because dungeon brick allows me to move NPCs whenever I want. You're going to notice here that I'm trying to get skeletons to spawn. Basically, if enemies are slightly off your screen or in a spawning range, it works like Minecraft. There's like a set spawning range that they can spawn in. That is basically what I'm trying to abuse to get enemies to spawn. This room isn't the best. Generally, you try to use a spike pit, one of those traps that you find in the dungeon. You blow up the bottom spikes with bombs, and then you have a perfectly flat spawning ground for skeletons to spawn and kill. Unfortunately, I didn't really want to go deeper into the dungeon because I didn't want to waste too much time. But I got this key, so I'm like, hey, I'll get the Cobalt Shield since I'm here. I know where the Cobalt Shield is because chests spawn in very specific orders. The first one is always going to be Muramasa. The second one's going to be Cobalt Shield. So just based off of that, I could tell that this chest on the right will be a Cobalt Shield. Sometimes the dungeons do get a little confusing and intertwined, so it's not always accurate, but for the most part, you can generally tell. I choose to use this as my new spawning spot since the surface was flatter and hopefully I would find more skeletons. Honestly, I didn't get a great dungeon layout and I didn't play it well, so I lost quite a bit of time here compared to what I could have gotten. As you can see, Cobalt Shield, as I said. And then I hear the mechanic getting beat, so I kind of just want to go down and save her. Still need 6 more bones. We need in total 30 bones to summon Skeletron Prime. So that's why you see me still in the dungeon and farming these enemies. As I get 30 bones, I am out of here. And I start selling everything that I don't need because I'm going to still need a lot more money for our souls farm as well as to kill Wall of Flesh. And again, you're gonna see me replace the bottom of that house with dungeon brick. That allows me to basically move who's ever in that house whenever I want to wherever I want, which is a very powerful tool in speedruns. And you'll see me abuse it multiple times throughout this run. I noticed that I actually haven't gotten my obsidian yet, so now I'm just gathering the remaining bit of obsidian. Though I end up just getting the 21 I need right from that little clump right there. So this is where you're going to see me actually use the blink root that I got earlier. I forgot to get water. That's why I'm heading back up for my water bottles. I'm going to be making a builder's potion. It's just going to be making the Wall of Flesh bridge just much faster, and that is where the blink root comes in handy. I normally wouldn't build the builder's pot when I don't have a feather fall and a blink root, but I do have the blink root farm at the top, which is a new strat or addition that I recently started using. So I'm just like, I'm just going to take a bet that it grows. I didn't think the run was very good right now. A 17-minute Skeletron kill isn't the fastest, and I'm going to end up with about a 23-minute wall. So I'm telling myself this is nowhere near any good pace, so I'm just like, I'm just going to use it to try to help speed me up and just take the gamble. I do actually get a Guide Voodoo Doll Demon to spawn, which is pretty nice. Now I don't have to build a guide house, which is probably about a 20 to 30 second time save. So that was super nice of the game, but again, I'm still pretty far behind. The general goal is to have about a 21-minute wall kill. And then I'm just gonna do the standard dynamite kill. Oh, that kind of got in the way. I didn't have nades on my hotbar. Wasn't the cleanest kill, but it works. Now, so far, this run hasn't been too lucky, but it's gonna ramp up here. So as I said earlier, the best drop that you can get from Wall of Flesh is the Ranger Emblem. And if you can't see, I got a Lucky Ranger Emblem, which is probably the second best roll you can get. Gives 4% crit and 15% range damage, which is all I could ask for in a speedrun. At this point, I'm going to be setting up my Souls farm. I see that the underground hollow is above me. So I'm just going to be placing a bunch of Crim blocks. This is going to make it so Crim enemies spawn down here in Hell, which will give me Ichor and Souls. And that is where the luckiness also comes up clutch. Basically, the first enemy I kill into hard mode, I get a 1 in, I believe, 5,000 drop chance, which was the Mech Worm, which is actually ideal for this run since I didn't have many vertebrae to begin with, as well as now I don't really have to worry about getting Souls of Night, so I only have to make one of these farms. I will still need 3 Souls of Night for the Prime Summon, but I only need to gather 9 Souls of Light and then 3 Souls of Night, which I can easily get when I go break altars. At this point, I'm just doing a little bit of inventorying. I just throw dynamite down on the chest. Enemies spawn on the platform below. They just fly into the dynamite, die, and then I'm just hoping that I get Souls of Light spawns. I also get a little unlucky with these Chaos Elemental spawns, but about. If this was a good run, I would be done with both souls, so I would have all 18 souls if I didn't get the Destro summon. All Souls of Night, all Souls of Light by about 30 minutes. 29, 30 minutes if it was a good run. I would also have all the Hellstone I need to make a Hellstone pickaxe, so I can mine the hard mode ores that I will be getting here soon. Unfortunately, this wasn't the best place to build my spawning platform. As you can see on the right-hand side, a lot of enemies are getting trapped. So you're probably about to see me here try to go despawn them by just going really far to the left. See me looking, and I just don't have any Souls of Light, essentially. Oh, no, I'm not gonna. Yeah, no, I am gonna go despawn them. There's no reason for me to despawn them. Now, you're also gonna see me do something that most people don't know about, but Ichor darts are really busted in this game. They do an absurd amount of damage, even though I'm using a blowpipe, which is what you get in a brown chest. It does so much damage to bosses that I will use this over a hollow repeater at times. A hollowed repeater, a post-mech weapon. I will use a blowpipe with Ichor darts on bosses because it is just that good. It is a very high skill cap weapon because you have to use it in a very specific way to get that type of DPS. But it is one of the highest DPS items that I can get extremely early on. At this point, you can see I have all the souls at this point, and I'm just going to look for a Fire Blossom now, because I still need to get the Hellstone. Normally, I get the Hellstone right after I entered hard mode, but I didn't see a Fire Blossom, and I was already in the underground hollow, so I just decided to do the souls right then and there. Use the obsidian skin. It'll make diving into lava super easy. And you're just going to see me get 60 Hellstone for a pickaxe here. I'll explain Ichor darts a little bit more about why they're so broken once we get to the bosses, because they're mainly really good against big hitbox enemies, not small hitboxes. Also, the blowpipe doesn't have enough damage for most of the endgame bosses because when enemies have too much defense, the blowpipe just doesn't have enough damage. It works well against low defense enemies, which the twins and primes don't have a lot of defense on classic, so I can really abuse it. So you're going to see me head to the Crim on the right. At this point, I just want to break altars to bless the world with Hardmode ores so I can get the Hardmode anvil. This will allow me to craft Ichor arrows, hollowed stuff, as well as the mech summons themselves, because I still need to craft the twins and the prime. I also mentioned earlier, I still need 3 Souls of Night, and this is how I'm going to get it. Every time you break a altar, a Wraith is going to spawn, and what I'm going to end up doing is luring all of these Wraiths down into the depth level needed for a Soul of Night to drop. So you're going to see me checking the map constantly here to see if I'm deep enough. You'll know that I'm deep enough when I'm in the cavern layer, which is the gray blocks on the map. So I know I'm not deep enough, so what I'm going to do is dynamite down right here, and then lure all the Wraiths to the left so that they don't die to the dynamite, and then I'm just going to rinse and repeat until I know I'm deep enough. I think I do mess it up a little bit where I do end up killing a few Wraiths because I don't get far enough over fast enough. But it ends up being alright for the most part. Just slowly moving these guys down. And now that I see I'm in the cavern layer, I kill all the enemies, and I get 2 Souls of Night. Need 1 more. I do notice that there's a mushroom biome over here and some cobalt, so I mine the cobalt and we'll go into the mushroom biome, just hoping that I get 1 enemy to spawn in there that just immediately drops me the Soul of Night, and I'm hoping to look for some more life crystals and some more chests because I still am missing Hermes boots, which will be a big upside for traveling when I get to Pillars and Cultist. I'm just looking for 1 more Soul of Night at this point. I kind of did get a little scammed, but hey, I got the Destra drop. I can't really complain. Now I just need to get the remaining ore that I need. I take note of the mithril, but I'm still just looking for cobalt. I need 45 cobalt ore. Just looking on the map to see if I can find it. Didn't see any on the map, so now I'm just going to explore the side caves. And I'm sure I find it quite quickly, if not recall, and then just go down one of the caves at the top. And at this point, all we need is the Hardmode anvil and 3 lenses for twins. I say that with a smile on my face because of the amount of runs that I have lost to not getting the lenses. It is a 1 in 3 drop chance from eyes, which is really bad. And unfortunately, depending on the moon cycle determines how often eyes spawn. And the first 2 moon cycles of the first 2 nights, eyes are much less likely to spawn. So eyes are always a pain in the ass to get to spawn, and then they're a pain in the ass to get the lenses to drop from them. Luckily, I do have a strategy to maximize getting lenses during the destroyer fight. And yeah, since it is a PB, you obviously know that it works. But there's a lot of runs that you guys don't see, that never get posted, never get shown, never see the light of day, that just straight up die to not getting the lens drops. I'm looking for the lowest ground possible because I'm going to be going up in the air here to fight Destro. Because I'm not going to be fighting Destroyer with normal weaponry. I'm going to be fighting it with what everybody fights him with. Dynamite, right? Crafting a battle potion to get more enemies to spawn. Also, keep note that I said eyes are less likely to spawn today. Or spawn this night, and just ignore the fact that I get 2 eye spawns immediately, if not 3. And then, oh, there's a 4th one. Look at that. Oh, there's 1 lens. I believe I recalled on accident there because I didn't have my hotkeys right. Oh, there's 2. 2 for 3? Can we make it 3 for 4? 3 for 4. Sometimes you just gotta get lucky. That's the name of Terraria speedruns, isn't it? At this point, I know I'm golden for Night 2 mechs. A lot of people would think that this is somewhat of a accomplishment. This is like my 14th or 15th time getting Night 2 mechs. Most of the runs after this just die to bulb not spawning. So I'm not super excited about getting a Night 2 mechs, but hey, it ended up being decent. Other than that, it's just a normal destroyer fight. Just drop dynamite on unbreakable blocks. If you're wondering what that platform below was, that was generally during the destroyer fight. I consume a battle pot and have a water candle going. So as you can hear, as I'm throwing dynamite, monsters are dying below. It's the same idea as our souls farm in hell. The enemies spawn on the platform and then immediately die to dynamite. The reason I want them to immediately die to dynamite because I want other enemies to spawn, aka eyes to spawn as fast as possible. So it cycles through the enemies faster, and I'm more likely to get lenses. After we kill Destroyer, we are praying that we get at least 24 hollow bars. The reason we want 24 hollow bars is so we can craft a repeater and a hollowed helmet. Repeater for our weapon, and then hollowed helmet for 15% range damage. Now, there's 2 ways that I generally fight twins here. I either fight it with a grav pot or a feather fall. I have 3 grav pots and no feather falls this run, so you're going to see me fight it with a grav pot. standard twins fight, I'm just going to be primarily focusing Spaz and then Rhett. And you're going to notice the blowpipe do a lot of damage at some point. Now, to explain the blowpipe, or more specifically Ichor darts, every single dart using weapon can do this. If you are a specific distance away, I don't know the exact distance, your Ichor darts will, instead of hitting like 4 to 5 times, will basically hit 8 to 10 times, which is doubling the DPS that you need. And again, this only works on large targets. And the general idea behind this working is that when the projectile spawns in the enemy, it, for whatever reason, bugs out and just does double damage, essentially. And that's basically the only thing I know about it, and it's really dumb. So, essentially, a hollow repeater will give you around 400 to 500 DPS. If you use the blowpipe in this specific way, you can get upwards to about 500 to 600 if used optimally. It is much easier to use with a feather fall than a grav pot, but as you see on Red, I'm just absolutely destroying him with the hollow repeater and the blowpipe. I do get a wyvern to spawn mid-fight, which is a little unlucky, but I have jester arrows, so I kind of just spread him. At this point, I'm just going to nurse cheese Rhett. You can generally just build a wall around you to just stop him from shooting entirely since he doesn't charge you anymore, but that makes me lose DPS, so I just choose to just heal at nurse. I still technically lose DPS healing at nurse, but it's a lot less than the block cheese. I unfortunately roll 15 bars. In classic, you can roll anywhere between 15 and 30 bars. And to get full hollow plus a hollow repeater, you actually need to roll about a 24 average. So getting 24 and then 15 is very bad, because now I basically know I'm not getting full hollow this run. And for those who don't know, full hollow is absolutely busted in this patch. Giving your character immunity to damage is really dumb. Prime is a pretty good example about why defense matters with the repeater. You're going to notice that I almost never use the repeater when his head's spinning. When his head's spinning, he gets double the amount of defense. So it basically makes every single damage that I get from the blowpipe, which you see is about 20s, goes down to basically 10s, which is not going to out DPS the repeater, which does a lot more. If you couldn't tell, I am like a little nervous because I'm messing up a little bit. It also doesn't help that I normally do this fight with with a feather fall. So not having a feather fall here just makes the fight extremely risky. I don't have as much mobility as I like, and yeah, it's kind of just a mess. As you can see, I almost died. That's just how it goes with some of these runs. You just lack mobility and it makes the fights harder, so you either clutch up or you just die. That was a very good chunk with the blowpipe, if you want a good example, and I rolled 19. This was actually a really abysmal roll. Generally, you do get full hollow. On average, you're actually in favor to get full hollowed. So, again, I just extremely low rolled here. And at this point, we need Plantera. Now, on older patches of the game, you used to not be able to sleep. But now, since you're able to sleep, we do sleep a little bit to hopefully get Plantera's bulb to spawn a little bit quicker. So, you're seeing me right now is actually make a bed. This bed will be used to set my spawn point later down the line, and it will also just be used to sleep. I also crafted a sofa because when you have the Cobalt Shield, there is a tank Cultist strategy later down the line. that I was thinking I was going to end up using, but since I didn't have full hollow and I didn't have full HP, I decided against it. So the sofa does go to waste, but it is a strat. Craft hollow grease for the move speed, and then I have the choice here to craft technically the melee helmet or a second repeater. I generally choose to craft the repeater because if you get a good roll on the repeater, it does so much more DPS. If you get deadly, quick, rapid, unreal, like that is a huge DPS increase. At this point, I'm just making potions. I'm waiting for NPCs to spawn. I specifically want the arms dealer and the dryad to spawn. I want the dryad so I can get pumpkin pies for an extra 5% damage and some extra move speed. And I want the arms dealer to spawn specifically for unholy arrows. Other than that, I'm just doing my standard crafting. I'm crafting a bunch of Ichor arrows for all the bosses and whatnot for the rest of the run. And then I'm crafting potions that I know I will need. Dryad spawn, so I immediately put the Clockwork Assault Rifle in my inventory so I can get the arms dealer to spawn. Immediately plant pumpkin seeds. A little bit more inventory management. Sell all my shenanigans. And then back sleeping. Not back sleeping. I'm going to be buying stuff to mechanic. I'm going to be buying junction boxes here. Junction boxes have a really fun mechanic where you can just place them in midair. It works like a pseudo ice rod, but it's dirt cheap. It does require you to place a platform on them, so it takes a little bit more skill, but ice rods are way too expensive, and we need a way to do it for pillar cheese later down the line. I also get enough resources to be able to craft the actuator rod. We're going to go in through the bottom of the temple instead of through the main door because it's just faster and easier. That said, we're still required to fight Golem in the Golem room because there's no way to move the Golem altar. At this point, I'm just sleeping a little bit more. I probably got up to go to the bathroom here, to be quite honest. I almost always do. And then when I come back, I'm going to get a nice little surprise. As I mentioned before, this isn't my first Night 2 mechs. I've gotten about 14 to 15 Night 2 mechs. And basically, I want to say 13 out of 15 of them have died to just no bulb spawning at all. Just no bulb. And the other two I ended up throwing to various reasonings, whether it was pillars or not having the mobility to actually kill plants. And as you see, there's a bulb right on the map, so I don't even need to find it. This is best case scenario where I don't even need to look for the bulb. It's also a little bit of a curse in disguise, if you want to call it that, because now that I have bulb, I have less of an incentive to explore the jungle, which means I'm going to have less HP than I normally would have, and I'm going to not find as many chests that I left in the jungle on the first check, which means I'm going to have less potions, which is going to bite me later down the line. Using random recalls to try to get closer to the jungle. I spawn on the left side, so I just take it. I'm going to be cooking the pumpkin pies. It gives me a little bit of extra move speed, plus a little bit of extra damage. And we're just going to go and fight Plantera. I will say, if you are somewhat of a veteran of this game and you have never used the Featherfall potion, it is probably the most overpowered potion in the game. It makes any wings just good, as well as it basically makes you have pseudo wings in pre-hard mode for 8 minutes. It's really dirt cheap to craft casually too, and it actually allows you to express your skill very nicely as well. Essentially, it just allows you to float in the air very lightly, and you can change that momentum very easily by pressing the up and down key, W and S. And yeah, it allows for very clean movement. You're also going to see me fight a non-required boss here super quick, which is Queen Bee. The reason I'm fighting Queen Bee is because she drops beeswax, which can be made into a bee chestplate, which will give +1 summons slots, which will make my dragon do slightly more DPS since I don't have full hollow. I do this. If I don't have full hollow, I will always do this. I'll get the chest plate just for a little bit of extra defense plus the one extra summon spot. It's just a small little mid-max thing I do. So heading down to the bulb, and there it is. And now I'm gonna start clearing out the Plantera arena. You don't really need that big of an arena. A lot of people make these massive arenas. Realistically, you just need enough room to be able to circle her quickly. And then you want a little chute to just go straight down when she goes into phase 2. Granted, this is more of a classic strategy because expert and master are always very different for the ways that you have to approach enemies. Classic, you can cheese all but 4 bosses now, I think we cheese, with either nurse or just some dumb strategy. So Plantera is really one of the last bosses that we have to do normally. I'm going to be making one of those houseless or wallless houses. I'm just going to be making a bed spawn point. This is to help with the Plantera fight. It just makes it a little bit easier during phase 2, so I don't have to run back through her to go straight up. I will just recall once I get to the bottom of the chute, and then she'll come flying back up at me, and then I rinse and repeat, go to the bottom, recall, go to the bottom, recall, yada, yada, yada. It's a really easy fight. At this point, I can basically be quiet because the rest of the bosses are pretty straightforward. You have Plantera, Cultist, and then the pillars. I will mention that I do take a complete gamble here. I have no idea where the temple is at this point in time. So generally, since I didn't see it at the very top, it's either going to be bottom left or it's going to be bottom right. And since I was closer to the bottom left, I just chose to go bottom left. And fortunately for me, I was correct. I get probably the best drop that you can get from Golem. I got a pick saw and a stinger with a decent enchant. Forge, whatever you want to call it. I am a little bit indecisive. I should have bought stinger bullets. The reason I didn't is because I was slightly scared that I didn't have enough money to tank Moonlord and Cultist. So I didn't really want to buy the ammunition because it is a little bit expensive, but I do end up eventually buying more because I just feel like it's worth it, and I was struggling with pillars. This is what I'm talking about. The never-ending sandstorm. I swear to God, this one never stopped throughout the entire run. I will just be straight up tanking Cultist with Nurse. Classic Cultist just does not do enough damage to be able to kill you or Nurse, so you can just straight up tank him. Especially when you can block half of his attacks with a single line of block. I am doing the little trick with the dungeon bricks, so once I move the Nurse here and use her, I can move her back to the main place for when I fight Moonlord. Even though it will be day by the time that I'm done killing Cultist. As I said before, basically half of Cultist's attacks can just be completely blocked by a single line of block. And fortunately for me, repeater arrows can shoot through a one line of block. Technically, at the start here, I should have just been using the stinger, but I don't like how inconsistent it is at shooting through the one tile gap, so I just was like, I'm just going to use the hollow repeater, but midway through the fight, I just changed my mind and start using it, and it's just more DPS. It was just me being dumb. Cultist works really weirdly in the classic difficulty. If he is facing to the right, no matter what, he's going to spawn on the top of his little, like, summoning ritual thing. So that's why you just see me never stop shooting, even though most people would. It's because if he's facing to the right, I always know he's going to spawn at the top. Look at the pillars. And then at this point, this run is basically on a 1:15 pace, and I'm well aware of that. The unfortunate part is I'm about to lose a lot of time. Spoilers, I guess. But this is what I mean by when getting an instant Plantera bulb, you lose out on a lot of potions. And I have no feather falls, and I have 2 gravity potions. I know I have to use 1 gravity potion on Solar and 1 on Nebula. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to do Stardust first. I'm going to get the cells and then do that. Oh, look at that. The sandstorm is still here. How fun. Oh, and guess where the pillar is? In the sandstorm. So I'm kind of just sitting here just hoping that a bubble spawns. I recall hoping to despawn them all and just try again, but nope, of course they didn't despawn, even though I was pretty far away. I go back, I try again. Try to get them to spawn. Oh, look, they don't spawn again. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna stay a little bit longer. The guy kills me after the grave. And this is just gonna go on and on and on. And, this is why this run could have been so much better. I lost so much time to pillars. It's so bad. I don't even want to watch this. I still have yet to get a bubble spawn, by the way. May I add? Like, I'm desperately trying to get a bubble to spawn. At this point, I crave and just buy the bullets, and because it's like, I just need to clear everything ASAP with it. But it's like, I just need a bubble to spawn. Or a star cell, whatever they're called. They're bubbles. And then I finally get this one to spawn, and then I get 2 of these star invaders to spawn behind me, and they just immediately kill me because, again, I have no feather fall, no mobility, no Hermes boots, just a cloud, some weak-ass rings, or wings, just like a nightmare. And thankfully, those cells didn't despawn, so now I can actually, like, do this pillar normally. There is somewhat of a strategy to bring these cells all the way over to the vortex pillar and do vortex and stardust at the exact same time. The reason I didn't do that is because I have 3 living wood trees in my way, and I have no idea when that pillar is going to activate. And if I have to deal with these star cells and the vortex enemies at the same time, it's not going to be fun. So I just decide I'm just going to stick this out, get the dragon, and then just fly over and do the vortex cheese. At this point, I know that I've killed all 100 cells, so I'm going to be using a grab here. The reason I use the grab is because if I try to go into the pillar with no mobility, I'm just going to die countless times. So what I'm going to do instead is fly to the top of the pillar and use the junction boxes that I talked about earlier, and then just shoot basically from above down onto the pillar and just try to instant kill it. I do mess up a little bit and just recall. I should have just recalled the start right here to just despawn all these enemies and then just do this normally. But I try to kill the pillar while dodging these guys, and it's just a nightmare. And then I get this thing to spawn. And then I get the invader thing to spawn, so I'm just like, yeah, it's just not worth it. Recall, heal again. This pillar took way too long again. It was just a nightmare. Essentially, I'm just going to go fly above. Enemies require a block to spawn on. That's why just flying in the air, I don't get any enemies to spawn. Yeah, I'm looking for the one junction box I placed down. Place the platform, and now I'm just going to try to find the pillar and shoot down and kill it. One strategy that a lot of other runners use is opening up the map and looking at the map to be able to shoot it. For whatever reason, I just don't do that, and I really should. I just end up missing a lot of shots. Hey, and look, the sandstorm is still going. What a surprise. Craft the dragon set. Again, I have 2 summons because I have the bee chest plate, and with the bewitching table, I can actually do a 3rd. I just don't have the mana to do it. I'm going to fly over these trees, and then I'm going to do the vortex cheese. For those who don't know, the vortex cheese, basically you fly all the way to the pillar, and then just dig straight down and block yourself off with a 1 block gap. You can literally do this on every single difficulty. And then block. And then you shoot up with any piercing weapon and AFK. The enemies will just continue spawning from the portal above you. And eventually, once you kill all the enemies, the piercing weapon is just going to eventually kill the pillar as well. If you're wondering why the lightning portal doesn't spawn below you, if you hook down to the side, if you hook onto the side that the block is above you, the vortex pillar will spawn the storm on you, but if you're on the open side, it will try to spawn at about 10 blocks above you. So you are in no risk of ever getting struck by the lightning, the enemies getting to you, or the enemies spawning on top of you. The dragon makes short work of the pillars and all the adds that spawn on the right-hand side, while the repeater with the unholy arrows shred the little bugs that spawn from the portal. Alright, on to everybody's favorite pillar, the solar pillar. I'm going to be using another grab pot here because I'm going to be using another cheese strategy. Basically, I'm going to be flying up in the air here to make sure that no enemies spawn. Even the crawlipedes, everybody's least favorite enemy in the game, or I mean everybody's favorite enemy in the game, won't spawn as long as there's not a block for them to spawn on. So as long as I'm in the air and I'm not close to any floating island blocks, I can get close to the pillar without a single enemy spawning. I check the map to see if there's a floating island ahead of me. I see that there's not. I also want to be right on top of the pillar, so I kind of go down as low as I think I can, and then I place the block. And then I start building a vertical setup. We have vertical setups and we have horizontal setups. I choose to do the vertical setup here because I don't have full hollow. The horizontal setup is faster, but it's a lot more risky, so I choose not to. Essentially, the vertical setup is really self-explanatory. It's just a vertical spawn platform. The enemies are going to spawn at the very bottom here. And supposed to just insta-kill everything. The enemies will only be able to spawn on that bottom row. And that's the only area that they're spawning, so the dragon's basically just going to spawn camp them. That's how this works. And now I drop down a little bit and all the enemies stop spawning. I destroyed the spawning platform up here so no more enemies won't spawn when I drop down. Make a little gap, and then I fire down at the pillar. Now, I'm going to be making a weird choice for most casuals, but we do this in almost every speedrun. I'm actually going to be making the daybreak over the solar eruption. The reason we make the daybreak over the solar eruption is if you are not point blank, it will provide more DPS than the solar eruption. The DOT at 1.4 was extremely buffed to basically doing 200 damage a second of just dot damage, while at the same time, it just does a lot of base damage. Where the eruption does explode and do a lot of bonus damage. The major issue with the eruption is the fact that it is very inaccurate at long distances. And, funny enough, Moonlord's arms, Moonlord's arms and head are at long distances, so it's wildly inaccurate, where the daybreak is just going to land every single shot. So I complained about my mobility at the start here. Now this is where the mobility crisis really kicks in. I have no more grabs, so the only way that I can get in the air so that I can just prevent monsters from spawning is literally rope pillaring up. And unfortunately, if you look at the mini-map, there's a hill on my left-hand side, and I don't go nearly high enough because I didn't notice it. So it's going to make the spawning platform a absolute nightmare to deal with once I actually do it. And of course, I'm a little bit farther away from a pillar than I would like to be. So it takes me a little bit to build. This is why having extra grabs and extra feather fall is extremely helpful, because I can just launch myself into air with a feather fall, and or just basically fly in the air with a gravitation potion. So even though I did get an instant bulb, it did end up biting me in the ass because I didn't get to explore the jungle as much to get the extra loot. I will be using a new pillar setup that is actually quite new to me, so it took me a little bit to set up. Basically, for whatever reason, if you make the blocks in a specific way, the little brains that shoot projectiles at you, or lasers at you, will not approach you. And this is where I realize I make my mistake, because I see the bottom platform and I know enemies are going to start spawning. So I immediately start trying to backstep. I almost die, which is the scary part. And then this is where I decide I'm going to make a bed, because if I die, I really don't want to have to make that track back here again, because again, I have 0 mobility. I'm just going to be making a quick bed real quick here. And I'm also just going to sleep in the bed, because if I go back down there, I'm just going to instant die. So I'm just going to sleep to regen my health faster. Like, nothing else I can do right now. Once I felt like my HP was accurate, I dropped down, used the heal pot, and then quickly tried to build the spawning platform. It is extremely scuffed, I'm aware. And then I get into my hidey box. Again, for whatever reason, if you make a box like this with these 5 specific blocks, the only way that things can charge at you are from the bottom. So when you see the brain shooters just spawn and teleport to the side, you're just gonna see them stop moving. I have no explanation for this, but it was tech that we found out extremely recently, and it's really funny. Because you can see them, like, they're only really charging at me when they are coming from the bottom. And they do keep their momentum, so you saw they did end up charging into me, but that's because he was coming from the bottom, teleported, and kept his momentum and slid into me, which was a little unfortunate, but... Again, this nebula ended up being super scuffed because of the terrain and just lack of mobility. Again, I lost almost 7 minutes to pillars, so this run should have been over about 2 minutes ago if I played it well. But I didn't, so we're still stuck at non-sub 120 pace. This is where looking at the map to aim would have been much better, because I think I eventually give up trying to hit it. I just could not find it for whatever reason. So I eventually give up and just like DPS rush it. I just struggled finding it. I don't know why. Normally I try to build a setup close to the pillars so I don't struggle, but when I'm like this far away, I swear like half of the arrows despawn and I just can't find it. At this point, I don't care about the nebula fragments. I'm literally just trying to kill the pillar, and then I'm recalling. I easily had enough DPS to do that. And at this point, it's just Moonlord. I do clear out the entire area over here. I was trying to make mugs and alcohol, so it gives 10% melee damage, which I'm going to be using Daybreak most of this fight. If you're wondering why I'm going to be using Daybreak over Phantasm, it is because Phantasm has a slow charge up time before it actually reaches max DPS. And when you're healing at the nurse a lot, that DPS is very much reduced. So even though I technically do have Ranger Emblem and Ranger setup, it's actually way more DPS to just use Daybreak. You're also going to notice this weird setup above Nurse. This is a new well, not new. It's a Moonlord cheese. Just like in patch 1.3, you used to be able to just block the main laser with blocks. For whatever reason, this also blocks the main laser. Because Moonlord has line of sight of you, so the laser doesn't actually go through blocks. But the block gap isn't wide enough for the laser to actually fully fit through, so it never touches you, as you can see. You technically don't need the pillars going up. You can just do it with a flat, like, 3-block gap with platforms between it. It's really weird. We allow it in no major abuses. It's not considered a major abuse because, like, it's using blocks to your advantage. It's weird. There's no, like, great definition for, like, what an abuse is. It's more of what the community finds fun, and we hold votes for it. And after that, I mean, Dragon and Daybreak is just eating Moonlord alive, and I mean, the run is pretty simple. Whenever I get low, I heal at Nurse. I don't want to keep the Nurse menu open, otherwise she will die to the Moonlord attacks. And I just let Dragon and Daybreak kill Moonlord. And that is the new world record for now. And as you can see, I am not happy in chat. I have not happy because this, again, was easily a 115 pace to Tilm Pillars. Pillars kind of just ruined everything. But yeah, I do appreciate you guys listening to my TED Talk, listening to me rant about this. Again, if you just want to watch this without my voice again, there is a link in the description below of a no commentary, just the raw video of the playthrough if you want to watch it again for whatever reason. But yeah, other than that, I do appreciate you guys watching, listening to me ramble, and yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Stay safe out there, and yeah, take care. Peace.